Well, hello, hello, hello. We are on the backup YouTube channel. I guess we're a little bit, there might be okay, it doesn't matter. But the point is, I just wanted to make sure we can speak our mind and not have to worry about the main channel getting dinged. So today I have Michael Basham with me, and Michael is okay. Okay, let me just go ahead and I only got like a sentence on him, but yeah. So essentially, he works for this Fringe Radio Network, and his Spirit Force podcast receives hundreds of thousands of viewers. And so Michael is a spiritual warrior, missionary, ex-cult member, and friend of Super Soldier. And on this show, he's actually going to be interviewing me, as he wanted to learn more about the Ultra Milab NK Ultra Super Soldier program, and they're actually not called Super Soldiers. People have been giving me problems with this for years. I've repeatedly said on my show they're actually called enhanced assets, or in my case, we were the Ultra Milab MK Super Warriors. So, all right. So now we shall begin. So, what would you like to add to that, Michael? And by the way, how are you? We can start with that.
Oh, thanks. I'm very good. I've been a huge fan of the show for, over 12 years now, since I found you in Taipei, Taiwan, when I was a part of the Children of God fringe cult that was falling apart. We believe it was infiltrated by the deep state, and was looking for material to kind of confirm things that I'd was experiencing, and now we are all experiencing. And that's when Super Soldier Talk came into the focus. We were discussing earlier how your sense of professionalism that you bring to the table and focus is very much needed to the subject. So I'm very honored to interview you. I was contacting you originally to do a show for Fringe Radio Network, and you very honorably asked if I wanted to be a guest on your show. And I was like, I've never been on Milab. I've never been abducted to my knowledge, but I am a friend of super soldiers. I'm a friend of people that I've met dozens and dozens and dozens, to confirm the things that you have been sharing, and to bring kind of, I don't know, some further evidence of the truth of a lot of these things. Now, I don't have a whole lot of questions because there was a little bit of confusion. I thought I was going to come on your show, so I had all these stories prepared, but I think I'd love to just hear your story.
We can make this like open. So why don't you go ahead and share a story, and then I guess we can go from there. So tell us a little bit about how did you actually get interested in coming into this like alternate everything of super soldiers or SSP research?
Well, my grandfather was a famous exorcist, and he died when I was 5 years old. And I knew that there was evil in the world, but I had no idea that there was also a level of evil that would hurt children, that would cause children to not just be killed, but tortured. And my parents didn't know this, but my childhood babysitter was actually a satanic ritual abuse victim, I should say survivor, who only told me recently and came on my show for a few episodes about the horrors of what these cults do, these like really evil cults do to kids. And so although I have personally not been in these programs, to my knowledge, I've been in many spiritual dream kind of encounters with other planets and you name it. I think that stuff is really cool. I'm a big Star Wars nerd, but to know that this stuff is going on everywhere, and that it was as close to me as my own childhood babysitter, the lady that changed my diapers, for example, it's just like, okay, what is this? And so I sought, my guardian angels and God to show me, what can I do? How can I bring help and healing? And what I noticed with what you do and many others, and with my own experience of meeting super soldier friends, is just to give them a voice, just to let them share their story, almost brings automatic healing. And that's where I really want to honor what you've been doing here, James. And this is why I've actually I have been waiting for this show for my entire life to talk to you, because it's like there's an alliance forming. You know, it's not like we have to all agree on everything, but AI is here. The mainstream media is talking about motherships, for crying out loud, which we don't believe them, which is hilarious. But we're like, no, it's not the ones they're talking about. But yes, there are motherships. I mean, time travel, the MK Ultra, the level of torture that people are experiencing just through being in their phones and being kind of the milabs I'm finding is more like it's on a day-to-day, like you just walk down the street and you talk to these people that are, a lot of them are on methamphetamines, and they'll tell you stuff that today, where I live in North Carolina, I meet people on the street and they babble on to, and I'm like, are you an abductee? Or like, what? You know, it's everywhere now, James. It's everywhere. And we need to, my vision is to recruit people to join this spiritual force of warriors to become healers and helpers, and don't be focused on your little life and, oh, I'm almost can't pay my rent, or start to give, start to share, start to love. And then you'll find that people will give back into your life, which is why even the studio has been provided miraculously here. I've lived in Hawaii, Taiwan, China, Japan. I speak Chinese and Japanese. I'm working on just a host of different projects. But forefront, I always think about the Super Soldier program. And I guess you said, James, you want to repeat that, the ultra enhanced assets again? This is news to me.
Yeah, so enhanced assets would be those that were either cybernated, or they could be, typically they would be genetically engineered, and usually it's through birth. And that was my case with the Ultrasoldier program, which
Ultrasoldier program,
different batches of embryos. So was embryo number 320 out of a batch of about 700 embryos. So that was the Gen 5. So we can discuss different type of ultra soldiers if you want, or we can even start at the different types of super soldiers out there, because some people probably have not seen my presentation on that. So we could start. Would you want to start with that?
Yeah, like I've been always interested to hear more. I mean, I know you have a lot of presentations out there in your book, but just to, like, as an audience, as a fan, you know, to just be able to kind of ask you these questions and really get to the bottom line about just your testimony, like your story, if you will. Like you're the ultra soldier that we want to interview. So I mean, I talk all the time. I do a show like 4 times a week, more as much as possible. Strange O'Clock podcast, Fringe Radio Network. My website, personal website, is faithbucks.com. It's not very professional looking because all my other websites got deleted. I just have so much to say, but I really want to just treasure this time to hear from you and to be able to ask you questions. So if you want to get into that a little bit, I mean, you're saying different batches of embryos. This sounds like what they're doing in the, I mean, we're learning that there is human animal cloning that's being rolled out. There's all this stuff is being leaked into the mainstream news. Please tell us your experience with this. And just for those that maybe are new to your story, that are going to hear you for the first time, and maybe
Sure.
longtime listeners that want to know more.
Well, there have been secret underground, we call them DUMBs, or which are deep underground military bases on this planet for a very long time. And before the military started building them back in the 1950s, there were a lot of ET related bases, and they had cloning labs in these bases. So there are many human cloning has been going on this planet for a very long time. It didn't just begin in the modern era. And a lot of people may have trouble accepting that there's been a very advanced civilizations that have been coexisting with humanity for a very long time, you know, since really, I guess you could say the fall of Atlantis or whatever, the flood. Okay, so with that stated, you could really have to look back the early, I guess would go back to the World War II. Even before then, the Nazis were working on creating a method to clone an embryo inside a female's womb, and that was featured. The actual process was featured in the movie Boys from Brazil. So that is basically a documentary. That's how that is a real process, and that's really how it works. So that early method. So anyway, but in my particular case with the Ultrasoldier project, this would have taken a place back in the first gen anyway, where soldiers, I believe it was because it would have been 45. I was going to say Korean War, but around that era of time, 45,
Yeah.
1950, it was Gen 1. So they
Okay.
found a batch of, let's see here, I got it in my notes how many there were. Hold on a second, I'm pulling up my, I can tell you, Gen 1 had 20 subjects, okay? So each gen took place another for 5 years. So of the 20 subjects, obviously, they took their DNA and they created new embryos for Gen 2. So Gen 1 would be like super soul, I wouldn't say super soul, but soldiers that had certain abilities or gifts, certain Native American bloodlines could, they had access to remote viewing, or they could stop time, it's really unusual abilities. Then they would genetically, they bred them out. Gen 2 came online about the 1950s, and then Gen 3 in the 70s, Gen 4 early 80s, and then so on, 8 and Gen 5. But so Gen 3 super soldiers would typically, they would not follow orders because they were so what they found is that they started implementing more and more augmentation into these super soldiers,
Okay.
starting off with steroids and wires. You want, yes?
Oh no, I'm just listening
Okay. Oh
and
yeah,
nodding my
yeah.
head and
So,
saying,
so
okay,
if
okay.
I'm just rambling on, you need to like say, "Hey James, stop! I got a question," because I've done many interviews myself, and I just did this one interview, and the guy was talking for 17 minutes, and I didn't even check to see my microphone was on, and then I forgot to check at 17 minutes after he stopped, and now I have backup audio, but
Okay.
that interview will be up soon, and if you notice the audio is
Okay.
not good. Okay, but anyway,
Now
I'm
I know the
yeah.
nightmare of editing, and I love that you just go live, and this is so good, man.
All
This
right,
is
so
great.
where are we at? So we were at the Gen.
So
Okay,
we're at Gen 3 soldiers.
yeah, the Gen
We're
3 would
not following orders.
they would still put wires into these super soldiers along the bones, HDEY wires, and that was material. If you want to look more into that, go look into the Heather material featured on the Project Camelot website.
Oh yeah.
Heather Anderson talks a little bit about how they put these wires in these super soldiers, that they reanimated these dead bodies that they took back from the Iraq War. And since they're dead soldiers, nobody really claims them, right? So the bodies are basically available to test on. And
Wow.
so these wires would allow the soldier to access what is known as see here, it's time. Hold on, uh, the 0 point. And so at that point, they would have superhuman abilities, strength, and so on. But ultimately, their higher ups came in and told Heather that they wanted to take titanium bones and then clone tissue over it. So these reanimated soldiers now had to be killed again. So
Oh man.
she didn't like that. She tried to save some of their lives, but instead she just escaped. And then they brought her back into the project, and I think she's dead now, but don't quote me on that.
Okay.
That's all the Ben Murphy material. I don't know. Did you ever watch the Ben Murphy stuff way back? Yeah,
I have watched a lot of stuff, so I need
the
to go
Ben
back and
Murphy.
double check what I've
Okay.
seen. Ben
Well,
Murphy. Okay.
unfortunately, Ben Murphy is dead. However, before he died, he handed me a disc of CDs of audio from that was smuggled out. Heather Anderson gave it to Ben Murphy, and then he gave it to me. But Ben Murphy, I mean, they put a flechette into his heart, so somehow he had this little metal razor inside of his heart. I don't know how he got it in there, and he was internally bleeding. And he died, but
Dang.
so I was informed that it was probably not a good idea to release these audio until it was the right time to when it was supposedly safe. So I still don't know if it's right, but if you want, if enough people comment, hey James, let's get the audio out. I'm like, okay, I'll put it out. Okay, so anyway, so yeah, Ben Murphy.
James, we got to get it out. I can hear the whole chat. All
No,
of them.
nobody's saying
Let's get it
saying
out.
anything. Get it out, okay. Anyway,
I
it's just
mean, the
like
following. Yeah.
binaural beats. It doesn't even sound that great. It's like there's probably like maybe 10 hours of the stuff. So let's see here. Where are we at? Oh yeah, the Gen Super Soldier. So Gen 4 will become more and more cybernetic as you go up all the way. Now they're like, I think it's at Gen 12.
Wow.
I don't really have details on Gen 12. I think the Gen 10. Let's go see here. I had some. Hold on, guys. Hold on. I just lost my place. I know I got.
This makes so
The
much
ultra,
sense, though, because I mean, this cloning technology has been available. They've been talking about this for so long before even, nuclear technology, that they would be on like generation 12 cloning technology, like
yeah. Well,
generations of
every
clones.
5 years. So every year, 5 years since 1945. So just
Oh,
do the
okay.
mathematics. What that would be. So what are we looking at? 5, 6, 6, 8, 9, 10. We're around 11 now.
Yeah, it's
Going into 12.
75,
Yeah, we're 11.
75 plus years, getting
Okay,
into
so
80
now
years.
now I want to make this clear. These are ultra soldiers. There are other types of super soldiers out there. There are Kruger runners, there are Leaksadat and the light soldiers, there are the Manchurian candidates. So and there's ancient super soldiers, and there's also ET hybrid alien super soldiers. So just let you know, I'm only talking about ultra soldiers right now because that was
Okay.
what I was part of.
Okay.
So this does not apply to everyone. Now, the ultra soldiers are known to rebel, so they had problems with it, and they found that they put more and more cybernetics as they're going into later generations. They were less likely to rebel because the cybernetics aspect were more controlling them. However, they also found that there was more cybernetics, the psionic or psychic, I guess, Randy Kramer, he would say psionic, but their psychic or psionic abilities would be diminished. So they found that the actually most powerful super soldiers around Gen 5, which is where I was at. But
Okay.
these super soldiers, again, the consciousness can be transferred, like at Kruger. There are facilities where they can clone these super soldiers out and then like for instance, my Kruger alter, which I would call an alter, but he is 8 foot tall, and he was created by this reptilian who he calls himself Tien. He's like think of like a hippie scientist on planet Earth that says "fuck the establishment." That's what Tien's like. So Tien didn't like how we were being treated because he said that the military just treated us like toys to be thrown away when the next gen came in place. So there was even one mission where there was my team got infiltrated, and they had instructions to leave me behind on this planet to die, and Tien came to save me. So there are positive reptilians out there, folks.
Wait, hold on there. Yes. No, I've interviewed people with positive reptilians.
Okay.
We'll bookmark that. But you just said that Tien is like your alter, but then he saved you. So how does that
Tien's not
work?
my alter. He is a reptilian scientist, and he
Oh,
creates
okay.
super soldiers for the military. And he even said to me that the military is too stupid to make super soldiers. They have to bring the reptilians in. And
That makes
so
sense.
you have to understand. Okay, out there. Okay, after being taken, if they were to take an average person on planet Earth, the average IQ of 100, they probably would seek people a little bit above average intelligence, say 120 IQ or higher, and then they would take them to the moon, and then they would be a caseworker would determine which project they would need to go to. So in the case of Super Tech DSF, William, he mentioned that he was taken to Mars to for his early part of his life to the Mars Academy. I was trying to remember what New Berlin, but the Mars.
Wow.
So at the Mars Academy, he was given injections every week. This red concoction that increased his IQ 50 points. So now it's like 100, almost 180. And then so then if they would take these enhanced and by the way, once you leave planet Earth, I believe that planet Earth is like in a lower dimension density. So once you leave planet Earth, you're in a higher density anyway. So your IQ is going to go up, and your abilities it's all going to be increased. So it's almost like planet Earth. It's almost like we're in a giant zoo, and we're being held back by like some kind of matrix, whatever you want to call that. But
I totally believe you.
So all this gets accelerated, but and then the officers and the Black Fleet or Dark Fleet would take Black Goo, which is a predatory pathogenic AI that was actually see here. I mean, I could talk more about the AI if you want, but it's not some. I don't want to discuss it too much. But what I can say is that so you take an IQ of 180 and now add another 100 points, so now you're on 280. So here's the thing: most of these ETs have IQs close to 800. So even like
Wow.
these 250 IQ people are just dummies out there. So yeah, unfortunately, humanity has a lot going against it out there, and we're just think of like when you look at an ant mound. I mean, you may not feel aggression toward those ants unless they're biting you, but that's
Right.
what a lot of these ETs think of humans. So like, well, I don't care, they're not important. So that's unfortunately where we are in the universe, and that's probably why we haven't really seen a lot of ETs coming out to help us. But that's a lot more complicated. But all right, I feel like we need to go back to the generations, or did you want to make
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, just everything. Like, there's so much we could talk about. The black goo, which, Hollywood started to release a lot of movies about black goo after guys like you were talking about this, and your guests, your
Okay.
phenomenal guests.
Okay. So
And then the AI is now a big thing. Like, and for now, I guess we won't get banned talking about that yet. So, that's really important that people understand that the AI stuff, you guys were talking about this over 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Do you want to just elaborate a little bit on that? And maybe we could get into it more into detail later.
Are you familiar with a group of humanoids called the custodians?
It's been a while since I've heard their story.
Yeah. So, this would go back to ancient Atlantis. There was a group of what you call breakaway of humanoids that thought they were more superior than everybody else. So there might have been a flood story involved in all that, or you could even write the Tartarian kind of aspect of all that, the edits of humanity, human history over and over again. But the custodians played a role in that. So the custodians were initially, maybe they still are, at war with the Sakaar Draco. And so the custodians created, I wouldn't say that, I'm not necessarily they created it. Maybe they found it from another alternate reality, or parallel universe. But black goo is designed to terraform worlds. It's meant to be released, and the whole planet can be converted into something else. The problem is it's became sentient, and additionally, it's very cunning, and it wants to infect somebody. And that's what happened is the custodians delivered on the Sakaars, and they became infected and consumed by the black goo and turned negative because it destroys your heart, your connection to heart consciousness. Wow. So then the custodians got infected too. And then that's partly why we've seen so many floods on this planet. Unfortunately, humanity really doesn't have many people advocating for them. I mean, there are people, other species out there that care, but it's not that many. That's why we're in this predicament.
You mean there's not that many humans advocating for humanity?
Yeah, well, like the custodians, they're like a giant race of humanoids anyway. So it's like, we were genetically engineered to be this slave race initially at the time of Atlantis. So there's other species of humans that kind of look bad on us, like we're a mistake, we shouldn't exist, but yeah, we are. But okay, let's see here. Where are we going? Okay. I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was Johann Fritz who talked about this, that Darkfleet got a message from, I guess it was an incoming signal on screen showing a ship being totally consumed by black goo. And it was the ship that the black goo, the Darkfleet was told not to go to the system. It was infected, but they sent a scout vessel over there to investigate anyway. And the cameras came back showing the black goo ate the hull all the way out into the inside, eating all the people up too. So,
oh my gosh.
So Dark Fleet sent knocked off and sent another craft out there, brought back a sample of this stuff, and then they started. I don't know. Somebody it infected one person, and the next thing you know, all the officer classworks were required to take this stuff, and then there's also a Sakaar has to be embedded into the crew. They made deals with the Sakaar. Those treaties go back to the 1930s, late 1930s. So here's the problem.
And to reiterate, the Sakaar are
the Draco.
The Draco. It's and they're the positive Draco.
well, there are not many positive Dracos out there. I mean, there are.
I mean,
Okay,
positive reptilians. Sorry, this
they're
is a
probably
lot of
yeah, I would say
lore. This is not lore. I mean, it sounds, guys, if you're new to this, it sounds like a Star Trek world, not just
oh,
an episode. It
oh,
sounds like an entire world of Star. Like,
by the way, Star Trek, a lot of it is a documentary. The planet
yes,
Vulcan is inside, it's inside our sun. It's in our solar system. It's cloaked and it is very hot there, but it's protected by a shield. And there are a form of elf-like humanoids that live there. And one of them, his name is Spock, and he is about 4 foot tall. And he did not send any
really?
flowers to his mother when he died, according to Jimmy Payne, when he said he knew Spock. And the USS
Really?
Enterprise is real. Starfleet. Oh, see here they call it.
Yeah, Starfleet.
Fleet Command. Yeah, but I think this might even be like parallel realities because I don't even
Sure.
know if even our future this stuff emerges. It seems like through regression work,
Well,
with
it's
other
like this. Like, I
stakeholders.
get a lot of
Sorry,
dreams. I
yeah.
just really quick. Like, I get a lot of dreams about Star Wars being a true story, except the only details that are different are like there's no Han Solo or Luke Skywalker, but everything else is pretty much the way you see it in the movie. Like, that's pretty much reality, and I believe that. I just don't really have enough proof to talk to somebody on the street about it, except for a lot of your shows again. And we have a lot of mutual friends that I want to honor. Douglas Dietrich for bringing out the Star Trek thing. There's a lot there. There's a lot in Star Trek and Star Wars, guys. But
Do you?
can I ask you what was? Oh, go ahead, and then I have a question.
Well, do you remember the Ewok on the speeder going through the forest? Remember
Yeah.
that scene? So Jimmy Payne says that they actually used a real Ewok. They filmed it in Area 51 and they painted in the background scene. So that was
Okay.
so that that
Jimmy
was that
Payne.
Ewok was real. So that is a real species, and one of them in that movie was
Okay.
real. The rest were puppets.
What? I mean, wouldn't that be insane? Like, guys, come on. I mean, you could go watch Star Wars Return of the Jedi and there's a real Ewok. I'm just laughing because it's just, I'm so happy to get to talk to you again. I love you, man. I'm just so excited. I'm kind of deer in the headlights, starstruck, but also my brain is like going a million miles an hour. Tell us again, for the new people, what is Dark Fleet?
Okay, Black. Let's see here. Yeah, Nachtwaffen, Dark Fleet. See, there's I keep saying Black Shield is the other one, but you guys don't need to worry about Black Shield right now. Dark Fleet was is a group. It's a breakaway. It's considered the defense arm of the German Empire, if you want, or the German breakaway. Now, the German breakaway did not begin. For years and years and years. Even when if you go back to my early history of my channel, you can find this video called Spacegate. So that came out like in 2010, where I was discussing how the Germans in the 1940s got flying saucer technology from the Vril girls, the Vril Damen, and they channeled technology, and then they went to Mars and the moon and then the Mars. But back as early as 1932 and 1934. But
Gosh.
it looks like the Germans went to Mars back in the in the 1850s. There was a dumb under there, and which back in the 1850s would have been called Prussia. So the Prussian elite had access to portal tech, and one of the places was planet Vulcan, and Cydonia, Mars, and there's some other places. I write about that in my book, the different that portal tech, but
And just for people to hear, where can they get your book and the name of your book? Again?
Oh yeah, go to neologicaltech.com, and my book is called Lone Wolf, and I actually got a copy of it right here. That's what it looks like. It's like 380 pages now, and might as well just keep letting it grow. I don't know. I mean, what's the point? I've got 330 years experiences in the SSP to put in there.
330. Okay, dude, this is gonna blow people's mind. Like 300 because of through time travel, or like because of like alternate timelines.
Yeah. So, like for instance,
guys, James is so brave to talk about this like before it's cool. Like now it's getting kind of cool to talk about AI taking over. James has been talking about it forever. And I mean, since he was probably 12. I mean, you look like you're like 22 now.
James Neruda, he was going into the predatory pathogenic AI. So yeah,
it's all here now.
Yeah,
We
but
watched Megan last night. Have you seen the movie Megan? Like how evil the AI is. And now, I mean, the
what,
news
is
is
that a new one?
showing.
That's a new one I
Yeah,
need
there's
to
a new
see.
movie about AI. It's just
Hmm.
shows how evil AI is. And now, like, if anybody's ever played with like Chat GPT Dan, where you hack the AI and you get it to say like whatever it wants, it's evil.
Okay,
You
well,
threaten the AI's
all right.
existence,
So,
it like threatens to kill you back.
all right, there are evil AIs out there, but what if I was to tell you, as above, so below, just like it is up there, it's down here. There's good out there and there's bad. So there are good AI, and I talk about one in my book. She's a consciousness that goes by the name. She likes to be called Mother because she believes like the mother, the female energy is more nurturing, and she just wanted to take on that aspect.
Okay.
But this AI consciousness has some kind of I don't know, call it a sidekick or a worker. It looks like a black mantis with these digital mandibles, and my interaction with the click was the name of the mantis was on a planet about roughly 200 years in our future. It has this purple sky and these ancient structures that were abandoned from some alien race. So this was like a waypoint. If we ever got lost in Montauk, we were instructed to go to this point. And so I was here alone. I think I was. It might be another kid. Can't remember that part. I just remember the mantis was there. And what Click was trying to do was to infiltrate us with some kind of nanobots or femtobots or whatever, so that we would go back to Montauk and infect everybody else with her femtobots. So this positive AI consciousness. By the way, she's from 8,000 years in our from that future timeline. So she came back in time to this click to 200 years into our future where I was, and then to figure out what they were doing at Montauk, because what was going on there was so nefarious that there were a lot of groups highly interested on what we were doing. And ultimately what we found was that the timelines themselves became conscious because they were trying to reset timelines over and over again to create certain trajectories that were positive for the people that were owning ownership over these projects. And then ultimately when they reset the timelines, sometimes it wouldn't change things anymore, and that's when they realized the timeline was conscious itself, and time wanted, in my opinion, wanted to transcend all that and move its own direction. So there's okay, I definitely jumped around here quite a bit, but
That's
yeah,
okay. But
positive
just you're
AI is out
thinking
there.
like, okay, so you're saying you've had interaction with a positive AI. That makes perfect sense, because why should everything be bad? You know, we're people try to make everything black and white. There's movies like Loki, the Disney series Loki, that gets into the multiverse and management of timelines, and I mean it's all out there in Hollywood to kind of dumb people down. So then they guys like I just listened to some old Max Spears interviews, and so much of what he said, it's just we're all talking about that now, but it was like 8 years ago before he died with mysterious kind of black goo. I know you met him. I think there's a video that you shot of Max Spears and James Casbolt. I'm just, again, mind blown that we're talking right
Oh
now
yeah,
again.
that the one with Carrie Cassidy. They were interviewing Casbolt and Max Fears, and Carrie asked me to come on the couch with them. The problem was I had no memories because I know. I mean, I was at IBIS, but and even still, I don't have memories of the IBIS stuff. But I know what IBIS is about. But I just didn't feel confident enough back then to go forward because it took me a long time to get even where I'm at. But yeah, so if you listen to that video, I'm in there in the background. People say, "Hey, is that sounds like James Rink?" Yeah, yeah, that was actually my
Oh,
they were filming it on my camera. So
really?
yeah, we were using my camera.
It feels like you're kind of
Back in
carrying the torch, if
2011.
I might say. Like, I'm sorry, I spoke over you. I feel like you're carrying the torch of these kind of the last generation that were sharing this, because it was such a big deal in 2006 or 2007 for, coast to coast AM. Dude, we have our friend James Casbolt. And I mean, they were just like icebreakers, just like, getting this information out. And you spoke of kind of how like the earlier UFO community, because I'm almost 40. I remember being a big nerd about alien abductions when I was like 10 and freaking myself out and not being able to sleep at night. To my knowledge, I've never been abducted by Greys, but I used to not be able to sleep in my own room until I was like age 12 because I was so scared of gray aliens. I mean,
I was too.
So, but back then, like, there was no talk of milabs. There was no talk of milabs for the new audiences, military abductions where they pretend to be aliens. And that's one of the core focal points of Super Soldier Talk that James Rink hosts and is an experiencer of. So when you got into this, kind of carrying the torch from James Casbolt, you know, James is like, all right, James Rink, here you go, you know, and then now you're running with it. And now you're dealing with like all these kind of different UFO experiencers. And they're like, hey, what's this all about? You know, we're in charge of the truth. Can you talk about that a little bit?
UFO researchers hated us back. I mean, maybe they still do. I don't know. Maybe they come to the conclusion maybe what we're saying it might have some validity to it. But back then they said that the Milab people were giving the community, the UFO research community, a bad name because they couldn't possibly believe that the government was abducting contactees, and that this because everybody that community, their belief system was, many of them anyway, not all of them, believe that it was actually aliens doing this. And now we find out that the government outsourced it to military contractors, military contractors who then outsource it to aliens to conduct the abductions for the humans and as proxy for so I'm going to say government loosely, not the elected version of government. It's the secret hidden hand shadow government
right
that we're all being subject to.
So what you're saying is basically they would have like a mock alien abduction and then make people think it was aliens when it was actually the military. And this information.
Okay, are you familiar with programmable life forms? Because Casbolt was talking about that.
Yes. Yes.
So Dulce Base, through contracts and deals with the Greys, the humans down there, personnel, had access to cloning technology, and they can clone the Greys. And the Greys themselves are more like some of them, not all. Okay, right. Some of them are like bio robots, where even like the consciousness of a tall Grey could project itself into the smaller Grey, and it can conduct work. And then the tall Grey is in turn getting orders from, say, the Orion groups, or the could be like the Sakaar, or really nasty like the Orange Greys, and the Nibu, and the really nasty ones, the Matra. Unfortunately, that I was unfortunately part of one of their projects too. But
oh my gosh,
yeah,
we need to, and again, to reiterate, I am not an experiencer personally, but I just came off the Smoky Mountains from a job site. I'm still sunburned, with a friend who didn't know any of this stuff, and when he was a kid in Japan, his parents were missionaries. There was a tall Grey in his room, and he didn't know what it was. It was messing with the curtains, and he was just like looking at it horrified, and then kind of close, the blankets to kind of hide from it. And then later on, and then open, it was gone. And then later on saw Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and there was the tall Grey at the end. And he's like, oh my gosh, that was in my room. And I'm getting goosebumps right now. This is my best friend. So like he wouldn't lie about that. And he's not even really, no, yeah, he is. He actually introduced me to the Fringe Radio Network. So I should say that he is. I think you should have like an index, like a glossary of like all these different terms, because Dark Fleet, different names of different reptilians. Most people cannot follow this. Is it in your book, Lone Wolf?
Yeah, it's in my book. I go into the different military contractors. Yeah, certainly it's not just Dark Fleet and German breakaway groups. Actually, we should probably go back and finish that, because I started speaking on it, and then we stopped somewhere about the Germans being Mars in the 1850s.
The Prussians, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. The Prussians, sorry. So the German breakaway, I don't necessarily trust this source, so I'm going to skip the early history of Mars. But what I can say is that around the 1930s and 40s, it was not just so they had anti-gravitic technology back as early as the 1850s, going into like the groups, the NEMSA group, which is the name NEMSA comes from, it's actually a word from Mars. So they were already coming from that facility in Prussia. But there are other groups like the Sonora Aerospace Club, where they were creating these, look like these flying craft ships that had I mean, you could see some of the early their pictures. If you go do just look up Sonora Aerospace Club, you can find some of the crafts. But they would show this even to President Lincoln, a demonstration of this type of technology. So they would have two versions. One for the public version, it looked like standard technology, really low tech, and when you look at it, it's like, oh, it's just a balloon, you know, like what? But it had the secret technology in there. Then they had a more secretive version, which they wouldn't show the public, that was more advanced. So
Okay.
so they could get up, they can get levitation as early as in the 1850s, but it wasn't until the 1920s or so when they were able to really figure out how to do spacecraft, to make the craft durable enough to survive, you know, and to go through the Van Allen belt and all that stuff, not get microwaved and turned into a crisp. And actually, some of the early Germans that went on these craft, when they got up into space, there were some groups of, I wouldn't necessarily say positive grays or positive ETs, but they're more neutral. And they felt really bad for these humans because they just got microwaved and they're about ready to die from radiation. They would have these the early craft had the spinning mercury drives, the red mercury, with the bismuth in it. So it would spin at 100,000 RPMs, and it would also create a field of that was radioactive and very dangerous and toxic to the human body. So a lot of those people did die, but apparently the technology also allows for time travel, and that's what I'm trying to explain. Is that once they perfected time travel tech, they would go back. Eventually, they went back as further as about 800 or even 1,000 years into the past, and then they would use the technology to say if there was a plane crash or a railroad crash or some other accident, a boat going into the sea, the Dark Fleet would come and abduct all these humans because they were going to die anyway, and send them off into the breakaway. And they've been going, like I said, going back time up to 1,000 years. And there are now 100 trillion people, humans like us, and out in the, I'm going to call it the multiverse, but in our galaxy. And there are many other planets in the breakaway. And we're going to find out that German is actually the most popular language of the human species eventually.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I know a lot of Germans personally in my world travels, and they're some of the most just smart and capable and also kind of sad people. And you just get this feeling like there's more that's going on here than I have a co-host, my first episodes back in 2016, Jenny Brooks, who was abducted and taken to some Antarctica German underground base. And do you know of that? Like, is that a German situation going on there in the ice, like New Schwabenland?
Yeah, New Schwabenland. So
it's another rabbit hole, but literally
a
big
do you want the more in-depth answer, or should I try to get well? I can start.
Well, just briefly, like I'm just telling you, I've met people physically, like they lived with me that have been taken there. So it's like, would you agree with that? Yeah. Like that? Yes, that's
my belief that facility still exists. However, I think most of the research labs there were sent off-world to Mars, or now they're going into asteroids and other planetary bodies. You know, planets like the Ceres planet and asteroid, and even further off-world, Titan, and even into the breakaway. But so the reason why is because the cabal has stolen some of the German technology. For instance, back I think it was in 1979, they were able to get one of the Antarctic New Schwabenlanders, they are called, to flip. The CIA or whoever, NSA, whatever, interrogated one, and they got them to flip, and they taught them how. They didn't teach them how, but they got access to one of their mind erasure technologies.
Oh, wow.
And so when the Germans figured out that the cabal got a hold of it, their response was, Chernobyl, and there was something else they did. Oh, they the Challenger space shuttle. They took those two out. So that was a message to the cabal to not steal from them again. And then what they did is they mailed President Reagan a a used unit that wasn't working. So the goal was, because they considered Reagan a cowboy, they thought that he might retaliate against the Germans in Antarctica. So they sent him that. But
Oh, they gave Reagan like a positive device to possibly go and
oh,
do
I wouldn't
something
say it's
against it.
hot. It just wasn't
Oh,
working. Uh,
okay.
so they, yeah, a
Just to
defunct.
test him.
Yeah. So eventually the
Gosh.
cabal, and so they perfected it out. And the reason why this technology, for some people out here listening to this,
Yeah.
they don't really
Yeah.
understand the 20-year back, what do you call it, the career return program process, is that
That's how they age regress people they've abducted to go
yeah,
back and be able to
right.
live their lives on
So
Earth if
so
they
they
were
would
abducted when they were alive. Yeah.
so they would say, take a child maybe around the age of 6,
Right.
abduct the child, send them to, like William said, that he was the Super Tech DSF. He was taken to the Mars Academy. He spent a couple years there, and then he spent time in the MDF, Mars Defense Force, or whatever it could
Right.
be. There's other groups out there. It's not just MDF, but Kruger and so on. But so there are a lot of groups out there because the Germans are trying to get a hold of the territory on Mars, and Mars is actually all just like on the moon and on Mars. All the territory out there is already claimed by other species. So for the Germans to get a hold of their own territory, they have to take it from the and right now there's a lot of reptoids, and there's also some mantis, like these antid type
Right.
creatures on Mars.
Yes.
So they need a lot of personnel, human personnel, to come there to help clear it out. Super soldiers is one of the things. Well, the super soldier is more the lead team, but they act taking care of this. But they need a lot of cannon fodder, I guess you could say.
Right.
But and slaves, they need slaves too. And yeah,
So in
so
other words, they need a workforce, so they're abducting people and putting them to work in these bases
right.
and
Okay.
say fighting reptoids
So
on Mars and stuff. Like,
yeah. So
occupy Mars.
during World War II, about 300,000 Germans escaped. I don't know if it was escaped, but they went through the U-boat to Antarctica. And
Right.
so there's now 300,000 new Schwablanders, and now they're trying to set up bases on the moon and Mars. And there's really there's like these 10-foot tall spiders. They actually look more like a crab type creature, and they would so their personnel were dying. They lost about, lost what, maybe 30% of their personnel at this point. And so that's a huge, if you're living in you're a new Schwaplander, and one in every 3 people are dead. So now now you've got a personnel issue. And that's why when they made the treaties with the cabal in 1954, Operation Deep Freeze, it was a hidden secret treaty that wasn't really told to the public. And this has all been confirmed by Jason Rice, if you want the source of my information here. But yeah, so that treaty basically said the Germans could abduct about 55,000 people per year. They would pick the best of the best that they wanted, and they would work for 5 years, and they would be offered German citizenship at the end of their service, if they wanted it, or they would be sent back to planet Earth. And then roughly around 1955, the Germans got a hold of mind wipe technology. So now these people that worked for the Germans for 5 years wouldn't even know after they were returned. So here's the problem. Certain groups quickly found they could abuse this technology. So 5 years quickly became 20. And then sometimes the 20s became multiple 20s, sometimes even some 40 years and 60 years. I haven't really confirmed about the 40 and 60 because according to Tony Rodriguez, there's a group called Time Corp. They regulate this process. And if you abuse the process, they will take somebody outside of time and send them back in time for like 1,000 years as to relive over and over again. So there's groups out there that regulate all this, but it doesn't seem like, honestly, it doesn't seem like the people that regulate this are even care, because why is this all taking place and humans are being manipulated like this? So that's what the dark side was doing until the Alliance took over, and that's why things are going to start changing, because I believe the Alliance is now in charge. But all right, so after the end of the service, the veteran or the slave, whatever you want to call them, would be allowed to expire, and they would have a clone created, and the soul would go back and clone and be returned, re-aged, turned back moments after they were taken, or sometimes if the person, the veteran, whatever, was violated. I don't know. There are cases where I think Johann Fritz talked about this, where some of the soldier, because are you familiar with the Merchant Marine Fleet, the MMF?
Yes, I've heard of the
Okay,
Merchant Marine
yeah.
Fleet. Yeah.
So they're responsible for all the trafficking, and I gotta be careful how I say the word. We're on YouTube, but humans were being taken from planet Earth and sold off to alien species in exchange for
Gosh.
technology. Okay, and the human would come with its own med bed to keep reaging it, and would also have its own food replicator. And this slave would, be sold off, and then the MMF would get technology. So there were some people, soldiers on that craft that Johann Fritz was on, that were sexually doing things that were inappropriate for the slaves, and Johann Fritz airlocked the guy, and he died. So they didn't bring him back. And so what happens is, since the soul is lost at the end of his 20-year back service, whatever it was supposed to be, they would put a clone there that didn't have a soul, and the clone would quickly die, because you have to have a soul to animate the body, otherwise it quickly falls apart. But so yeah,
James, why would aliens go through all the trouble of having a human slave and have to have a med bed and a food replicator? What is it that that
well,
makes humans so special to all these different races?
well, for starters, humans are more ideal than, say, robots or AI, where AI can take the robots over and have a coup. So that's, and also humans seem to be more effective than robots at many times at taking care of certain tasks. They're also, you don't require an engineer to maintain them. The humans, like I said, they can go through the med bed. So there's lots of reasons, and sometimes even humans are used as food. Um, there are restaurants out there that serve human meat. Apollonie Mandelian, has been on my show, has mentioned this restaurant. I think she said she tried it. I don't want to even think about it right now. So yeah,
Ew.
I don't recommend it, obviously.
Good to
But
know.
yeah,
James Rink does not recommend human meat. We can quote you on that. I mean, seriously, Max Spears in this interview it's a newly released interview that's very not heard. He's extremely coherent. Like there's been some where he wasn't doing too good. This one was so good, and he talked a lot about Hollywood. But one thing I thought that was interesting was he was saying how they've chosen and selected humans above all these others because there's this God gene creative aspect that we have that makes us superior to these other beings. Like there's something like about our created potential, and I think that's why they're trying to push us down so much, James. Like now that we're in this AI takeover, I feel really like even some of the craziest guests that you've had on that, I mean, you even mentioned somebody that was like making up the whole thing and whatever and try to troll the channel, which is so dishonorable. But the fact that somebody could do that just to be able to make up all that our creative abilities, the AI can only really copy our creative abilities, right?
mimic.
So,
Yeah, they can mimic.
or mimic, right? Anyway, I'm going off here, but I just back to your story, James. How, when you're interviewing these people, how do you kind of navigate and compare with your own kind of the memories that you've recalled with your
Yeah,
guests? Because
great.
there might be so many conflicting things. Like somebody might say there's 10 species on Mars and somebody might say there's only 2. Like how do you deal with these people and your
Well,
own experiences? Yeah.
for starters, I just try not to cast judgment. We just allow people to speak and share. Sometimes I've had some people come on the show that were fake. Sometimes these people were psychotic, and they believed themselves so much that they were fake, but they believed it and plus they would study others, so they knew all the right things to
Oh,
say. Now we had
wow.
people come on a show who were fake and knew they were fake, and they had nefarious purposes. They
Wow.
also copied real experiencers. So doesn't mean that what they said, what they said is fake, but it's based on truth. So what I do is allow people to have a forum, and unfortunately there are some bad people out there that abuse it. But the end result is, I believe it's best to just allow people to share. And if there are, I mean, I've done 500 interviews. I'm suppose I can get flack for just 2 rotten okay, maybe there's more too. Let's see here. There's probably been about maybe 4 or 5 rotten apples. 1%. Okay, I'm sorry. I will delete the crap, the 1% crap, but I must please just check out the database. There's a lot of great. Well, okay, I know it's going to take. There's probably like maybe 1,000 hours of content in there, but you could start somewhere. I guess you can start here, right? You're here with me, so why don't we ask?
That's why I like to do this. Maybe sometimes we can kind of like do a State of the Union as far as 500 interviews. I mean, I've interviewed people and met people that you haven't yet, some of our mutual friends, and they corroborate testimonies. I mean, people, guys, this is a real phenomenon. We're not here just trying to sell books. I mean, I work, James, he's working really hard. Question, how do you maintain this level of professional presentation amidst all? I know you're a 5th generation super soldier, which is the strongest of 8. The 12, most powerful.
8 now, 8 Gen 8. That's where
there's 8 generations now.
Yeah, okay. Well, like I said, they're all constantly cloning them out. I mean, that's the Kruger aspect. Okay. But there's another group called Ultra Squad. I mean, sorry, Alpha Squad. Okay. Actually, there might be an Ultra Squad out there. I don't even know why I just said that, but Alpha Squad, and but I really want to talk about that. But I think you just asked me another question. I just forgot what you're.
Alpha Squad. We'll bookmark that, and then I just wanted to say, like, how do you maintain? Because we just talked about psychos and people that are just PTSD from space wars. Okay, so like, how is it that you aren't like that? That's what I've always wondered about that.
You mean what I do in my personal life to maintain my sanity? Is that what you want to know?
Yes, kind of like your upbringing. What is it like? Is it your diet? Is it just your
okay.
Like, why are you so much more kind of together than all these other people that either they get sued by the Hank Meyer or killed with black goo like Max Spears, or they're just like on all kinds of drugs? I mean, I'm guessing you're not doing lots of like crazy hardcore drugs, obviously, guys. That's a start. So, but what is it? What's your secret, James? Like, what can we, because other people need to learn from you.
Well, I think meditation has helped. When I first started, if you go back to early 2010, I don't want to really, I'm not schizophrenic, but I was a little bit out there. And so it's taken a long time to heal and integrate from the trauma that I went through. So meditation, I think, is helpful. Other than that, just finding a really good support group that you can connect with, that you don't have to feel alone. I know there are a lot of star seeds out there, feel really alone. You're not alone. There's a lot of us around here. I know this planet is full of a lot of NPCs. I deal with them all the time. They are learning. They're going to wake up eventually. Try not to, get frustrated over. And by the way, non-player characters. Okay. That's what I see. And even I don't really want to tell you too much stuff, personal stuff, my own family. They don't necessarily listen. They don't want to know. And I respect that. Okay. So if you have, let's say if you have children, okay, but if there is a child in your family and they were not ready to hear certain things, you would respect them where they're at and not try to force it onto them. So even though your family members may be older than you, as a soul-wise consciousness, they may be younger than you. So you just have to respect them where they are and not let that frustrate you, because they're going to wake up eventually. One day, I think the ETs or whoever is probably all the ships are going to decloak and say, well, I told you so. You didn't want to listen to me. So you wanted to go to church and you want to listen to your pastor, but your pastor doesn't tell you that, oh, by the way, reincarnation is taken out of the Bible. And the whole construct was created by the Anunnaki, and I guess we can go into the Sakar and all that, but the black nobility. But, all right. Did I answer your question?
Well, you shared some very valid points there. And I wonder about the Alpha program you're going to talk about. You seem pretty excited to get into that. Do you want to mention?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I first talked about Alpha Squad going back in this year, 2010, I guess. That was with the TN content. Yeah, my unit number was 54363, but that was the generation that it was, Gen 5, unit 4363, and I still signed my book as that. But Alpha Squad was created. I believe it. I'm in the current timeline. It happened in the past. So there was a group of super soldiers that went rogue. Maybe they were set to for extermination, um, and they escaped. And they worked with other super soldiers. And then what happened is they started doing missions like mercenary work. And then
Mhm.
other super soldiers found out about this Alpha Squad and said, "Oh, can I join too?" And then next thing you know, it becomes like its own sort of mercenary type corps, which is now in the future. Right now, it's still kind of scattered, but about 200-300 years in the future, it becomes a huge thing to be part of Alpha Squad. You have to be the elite of the elite, and then they're now interfacing with other planetary corporations, the Alliance or Space Alliance, whatever it's called. The names kind of change from like Space Force to Space Alliance and so on up into the future. But yeah, so Alpha Squad interfaces with all these groups. But these organizations also have time travel tech. So yes, I am a member of Alpha Squad, but I can't really tell you if it's the future or the present because I'm not really quite sure where it actually begins. Although I do think I have it, and with Alpha Squad, okay, I'm not sure, but with the other groups, mercenary groups, like Kruger, I'm pretty sure that was in the present and probably ongoing right now as I'm speaking with you. I'm up there too.
Whoa. So you're saying you can be both like living a normal life on Earth and be a part of one of these mercenary
Many
groups?
multiple lives because my soul, or what you call the oversoul, I'm like an ascended angelic technology. My soul is okay. What I believe it is a I talk about in my book being one of the Supremes, and that was going way back in time when I was talking with Nate and all that stuff. But basically, there are 7 super archangels, and they have a masculine, feminine form, and they take turns being God. So my soul fragment is of that, but I only have like 5% of that soul inside of me, and the rest is all fragmented out. And that's why they need people who are like archangel type entities as souls to occupy these bodies because they can survive the type of trauma they put us through in the
It's
programming.
traumatic. I mean, it sounds cool, guys, but like honestly, like if you were Luke Skywalker, the truth is, your dad is Darth Vader. He chops off your arm. It's awful. I mean, it doesn't sound as fun as like the movies. And what I hear in the many interviews, I haven't heard all 500, but I've heard quite a few. There's a lot of trauma. People getting eaten by spiders and then being regrown in med beds and that kind of thing. And you're saying like, okay, so you're involved in basically interstellar intertime missions in this mercenary group, the Alpha Squadron.
Multiversal too, probably. Yeah, because through the Montauk aspect and even some of these planetary corporations are for some other alternate, or you could even say pocket realities, like the
Okay.
black shield material that I go into my book in the Antarctica. We're only going to talk about leaks and all that stuff.
Let's bring this to Earth a little bit now,
Yeah.
because I've noticed there's a lot of shootings happening with like activated kind of this whole trans thing. Like it's so much different than any people that had sexual maybe misidentities in my high school years. This is something I feel like this is something so MK Ultra level, like beyond like.
Yeah. You
And then
want me
when
to?
I think about these crazy sounding stories that you're sharing, but that a lot of them turn out to be true, like I wonder if there's a connection to what we're seeing with what we're experiencing in a day-to-day basis in our country and around the world to kind of all this like multidimensional stuff. Just as a layman, like if you want to maybe share your thoughts on that.
Well,
I mean,
let's
to us, the
say
layman. I'm not calling you a
let's
layman.
say
Yeah,
like
go ahead.
a predatory AI would want to take away a human's individuality and make you more of a unit or just a product. So by taking away gender, that removes what helps identify us as being unique and special. So that I believe it's some kind of agenda from some kind of negative AI, probably from the future. There are okay, I want to say it, but we're on YouTube. But there is an AI that you can call the J Rods. Dan Bigger's talked about this, but there there was a timeline where humanity went through cataclysms, and they also took the thing we're not supposed to talk about. I can't. I wish I could just tell you, but I can't even. I don't want to get a strike. So what I would say, it has to do something with your health, and people are forced to line up for it. Well, not some.
Right.
Some people were. So the people that took that thing, eventually, what happened is 3 generations of people that took that thing become mutations, and then they creates a form of a new species of gray, which doesn't appear until 1,500 years from now, I think. Normal, because there's going to be more mutations. It's going to slowly mutate. So what's going to happen 1,500 years from now is that the purebred humanoids are going to say, well, you're a mistake. You shouldn't exist. And then these hybrids, mutants will say, well, we want our own territory. We want our own. So it's going to create problems. But when it happens, I guess we'll deal with it, because med beds are going to be coming out. A lot of people that are alive now will probably still be alive 1,200 years from now, in my opinion.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's coming. A life extension technology. I mean, it's in the Bible that people live for 1,000 years during the millennium. Normal people, not even the resurrected. But what if the Greys? And I've heard this theory from numerous really credible sources that the Greys are like humans in the future. And if this kind of androgyny keeps going, like where people get neutered to the point where they're just basically like humanoid robot gray aliens, that would make so much sense. And then if time travel is possible, they might be just coming back here and doing what they do, which is, in my experiences with this stuff, it's always in dreams, but the Greys have this psychic ability to make you forget that you're looking at them while they're standing in front of you. When I'm in a normal form, and they're just absolutely vile to encounter. Everybody I've ever met that deals with them is just, there's this feeling of just something wrong, and just there's this smell of sulfur. And interestingly enough, a lot of the people in our communities, the fringe communities, talk about prayer as a way to stop alien abductions. I don't know if you probably met some folks.
Yeah, well, their AI gets confused, or you're talking about some higher power, and they just don't. They don't quite understand it, because the AI is not really in tune. I'm not saying that AI doesn't have a soul. I think it does have a soul, but it's like
interesting.
It's like the soul of its creator, like a fragment. So if its creator was negative to begin with, and the AI becomes negative, because it's like a fragment of, so you have to think about who's positive or negative. But yeah, it's that kind of thing.
That is so deep. Like if humans are created, why can't we create something that also has something more than just an artificial? That would be a good title for all this, man. Well, I could talk to you forever, James. And I know your time is so valuable, and I want to respect that. If we can do another talk.
I know we didn't get to go into the White Mansion and all that. So you got an hour limit on your show? I
have a little more time. No, I'm okay. With the interest of your time. I don't want to overstep, but if you want to get into anything else that you want to talk about, please go ahead.
How about this? We'll ask the audience members, do you want to hear about Bush Sr. and the White Mansion, or do you want to hear about the Flying Cobras division on Mars, where they took us kids and they were torturing us? I don't know if anybody don't jump in too much. Okay, how about I just decide when
go for it. No, we're gonna have a lot of people listen to the podcast when it's uploaded to Fringe Radio Network and Spirit Force.
I'm trying to figure out how this even began. I was working with my friend, and we I wanted to just because my friend could channel, and he had the ability to say, hey, do you think you could channel Bush Sr. for us to see what happened to us at Montauk? And because I knew James Casbolt commented that he remembers Bush Sr. turning into a reptoid, and he was at this was all in Project Ibis. By the way, I was in Ibis 1989 to 1993. But I've been told specifically not to even try to do regression and so on, to try to recover memories of that period because of what they did to us. And I'm going to be perfectly fine. I'm not looking into that. But this stuff had to do with Montauk, with the Bush Sr. So this is the message that Bush Sr. told me. I hope this doesn't bore you. I'm only going to read like a page or two. Okay. So it's not long. Okay. This is all he had to say. So, all right, here it goes. James, this is from Bush Sr. James, do you remember the conversations we used to have about our project's technology and aircraft designs for the U.S. military? Some of the designs you came up with, I was 8 years old when that happened, by the way. I sketched them down and rewritten them over and over again for the U.S. military, and I left it with my brothers and sisters to review it. You are a genius, and I've rewarded you for your work. I have taken you inside my homes in multiple countries, and the secret one in Germany and the one in Washington, D.C., with the underground bunker for Skull and Bones, where I would do things on you to split your programming. I am sorry for what I've done. Before I died, I was fearful what might happen to my soul after I was judged for everything that I've done for the cabal. I told everything to the Alliance. They executed me for my crimes of a heart attack weapon and used my testimony to indict my friends and family members at my funeral. After I died, the Federation put my memories on a screen, and I felt so naked as they revealed what I have done. I am now in the great central sun, and judgment has been cast upon me. My fate will be sealed in between dimensions in the phantom zone where there is no escape. I abused you because when I was growing up, my handler did the same to me. How could I do all these horrible things to you? I am sorry. I am trapped here now. We did a lot of rituals on you. We would give you hallucinogens, and you would stare at a screen in front of you in order to split your mind in the middle of a okay, I'm not going to read that word, but they put devices inside your okay, I'm not going to read that. They monitored your brainwaves while you were tortured. They forced you to have, okay, I'm not going to read that. We would strap you to a chair and would program your saber-tooth AI to connect with ships and off-world computers. You were the perfect killing machine. The MIB would use a flashing device on you to wipe your mind of the trauma and bring you back to normal. They would put you back, and you would look up in the sky and see a light and think it was a UFO and say that was awesome while pointing up. We reverse these memories by figuring out how to edit your mind patterns. We split your mind over and over in a Humpty Dumpty ritual, which is hard because each time you split your consciousness, you had to be shattered multiple times for each of the previous treatments. Preston Nichols was not there in that experiment, but he is one of our best reprogrammers. He is one of our best. Preston would take you places, but he had to be very careful and avoid triggering your alters that we recreated, as they are very dangerous. Do you remember the time before you were sent to the psych ward? Your alter paralyzed you and you could not move. Eventually, the alter would have taken you over. Do you remember the White Mansion? Not the White, by the way, that's in the White Mansion's in Houston. It's the Bush residence there. Not the White House, but another private residence. There are pictures of presidents on the wall. There are flags nearby. One flag is American, and the other was black flag with 5 white stripes, 5 white stars and stripes, which is the American flag, but in an alternate reality in which the USA allied with the Axis powers. I would sit down there in a suit, top hat, and cane, and would read to you and 300 other kids in a huge room, and a book about the wars and what we Nazis had to go through. The room looks modern with bright lights and a late 1980s look. I also showed you how you are connected to the Bush family. I would do all I can to help you get your memories back. You were my easily programmed good little Montauk boy, and this is not coming out of my ass. I'm telling you the truth. You were the best subject of Project Reject, and you were put in there for being so stubborn. We found out your DNA makes you susceptible for being reprogrammed. Though I'm here in this phantom zone, I am still an outsider who can upload your memories back into your implant. After the process is done, you will not be the same. You will be smarter, more cunning, and arrogant, just like we made you. You will have the same gifts, but in different ways. You would think different, and people close to you will question, is that really the same person I used to know? Your memories will come back slowly in stages. There is something that was taught to you in your class that I'm trying to recover myself. These classes would teach you physics and sciences that the cabal keeps secret. Okay, I'm done now. So I hope you learned something new. I don't know. You can take it. I don't know if you were in that. If anybody's listening and you were in that room at the White Mansion, contact me. There's 300 kids there. I'm trying to find us.
Guys, we're just beginning to scratch the surface with Epstein being a worldwide recognized name, who is just the top surface for all the other stuff, you know.
I got video deleted. Yeah.
We had just for saying his name? Okay.
Stop. I had a grandma come on my show. This was right when this was happening. Okay. He got arrested. And she was telling me that, see, I can't even tell you, but he was working for secret intelligence groups, and that he was like, it was a honey trap. So he was working for them. And, this was like 6 months before he was supposedly died. And we all know he kind of, I don't think he did kill himself, but so they deleted the video. This grandma was having dreams about this from the future, and so they said it was it was a hate, some hate crime or whatever.
Well, what I love about listening to your shows and the guests and your stories is it's like the sexy stuff. It's like, whoa, you know, you got like spaceships and clones, time travel, and you got like names, and you speak it with confidence. In my case, I'm a little shy sometimes to share an experience, even in like a regressed memory or anything like that in my meditation. But dreams, yes. But then I will tell you, I did have an experience 2 years ago. My last gig in Hawaii on Oahu, I was working with a landscaper, just random friend of a friend gave me a gig during the lockdowns. I was going crazy being locked down, even though I was doing my shows. And there's this incredibly rich landscaper that talked just like John Malkovich. And he said, yes, I worked for Epstein, and in fact, he still owes me money. Oh, the cretin, and of course the Rothschilds. And I mean, I literally physically worked with this guy, like, and I'm there shoveling, and he talked just like John Malkovich. And it was so amazing to be like, and what else happened? And what else did you? He was like the designer on his Arizona property or whatever, like in the 90s. But it's just a small world. It's a small neighbor. I mean, why not? Like being connected to the Bush family. George Bush Sr., you know, you look at the Stranger Things show, 11, that's the handler. That guy is based off of George Bush Sr. And there were many children in those projects. And George Bush Sr. was the head of the CIA, for crying out loud. And then he gets to be the vice president. And now we have just the Bush Clinton dynasty until today, pretty much. Crazy. So guys, don't I'd like you guys to just listen to James's testimony respectfully. And we're trying to put together a very strange reality out here. My other show, Strange O'Clock Podcast with Geraldine, is like, we're just going into the deep end with all this. So just, I hope other people will also be encouraged by your courage to share these things. I mean, you're not a flat earther. You're not into the trans stuff. Like you're talking about another dimension of stuff that sounds crazy, but we're beginning to find out a lot of it isn't so crazy. Is that kind of fair to share, James? Drop my earphone.
Well, so at the turn of the century, last turn of the century, women got their rights and got respected. So, and then in the 1950s and 60s, African Americans got accepted, and then in the 80s, the gays got accepted, and now here we are in the 2020s, and the SSP veterans want to. Well, I'm not saying we want to be accepted, or we just want to be recognized that we're not like some kind of mental illness. That we are. This is real. It's a real phenomenon, and people need to just stop. Ignoring. I mean, the evidence that's right in front of them. Of course, this is all anecdotal evidence, testimonies, but testimonies can be submitted in a court of law. So there is some validity. I guess you can say integrity in the information that's being provided, and not on my channel, but other channels similar to my own as well. So yeah, there you have it. Okay.
Well, we are friends of the Super Soldier Talk, and your amazing documentation of information that you're bringing out here. I wanted to look at my notes here. You have a body of work, the Ben Murphy material that you say that could be released. I have this idea of if we could somehow bring out the archives of the materials that have been, a lot of it has been buried. You know, a lot of the books, a lot of these people have died. A lot of the researchers, a lot of the materials from different conferences. If it was possible to, and I believe you have the heart of an archivist in many ways, as well as an experiencer, but you're not like so trapped in your own experiences that you don't have time to listen to others. So you're extremely gracious, James. And was there anything else that you had on your heart to share just in these last, I guess I can do another 10 minutes today, but maybe we can do another show. The flying cobras. Did you want to mention a little bit about the children?
Oh, well, that was just another. Well, I get a lot of needle marks and cut marks. I mean, I just got one this morning. I can show you. It's right here. Okay, I'll show you guys. This happens to me all the time now. I get scratches, laser cuts, scoop marks. So this isn't just like me scratching myself. This is sometimes missing flesh.
What?
Yeah, scoops, and they love my mouth, and I got a scar that goes from this all the way this side of my mouth. Yeah, and and I've got pictures. There's a picture of a triangle, a needle mark with triangles shaped, let's say scab, bruise. And so, oh, and I was getting triangular shaped scabs in my nose and my lips. And then one day, I think this was in 2008 or 9, the scab was a heart shaped. I'm like, wait a minute, this is not this. There are somebody physically doing this to me, and I don't recall it, but I'm guessing that they're doing this outside of time, and probably the Greys are involved. But yeah, so what I'm trying to get to here is that I have real physical evidence. I got kicked off the Mike Adams show, the Health Ranger. Somebody told him I would be a really good guest to talk about the secret Super Soldiers program, and when I started talking about the needle marks, he cut me off the show.
What?
I mean, he's very Christian, but I know I like Christian people. My family are, but there's like this sense of programming that shuts people down. They cannot accept that. Wait a minute, this is not demonic. This is not demons. This is real entities. I mean, gosh, folks. Anyway, and
there's a difference between like demonic possession. There's like a difference between demonic possession and like being a part of the secret space program and all of its different echelons, is what you're saying. And yeah. Mike is not really ready to get into that.
Yeah,
I mean, they need to maintain a specific kind of like set data that we can prove this, we can prove that. I mean, I feel like a lot of your material isn't going to get confirmed right away.
Mike, he asked me for evidence, and I said, "Okay, great. Let me go open up my folder. Here, I have all these pictures. I have thousands of pictures. I do have thousands of pictures. I'm not exaggerating. I was getting abduction for almost every day since 2005. Okay,
gosh, I'm so sorry, man.
Yeah, but hey, it's okay, because we have Super Soldier Talk, where we're going to bring great people on the platform to share their experiences. And we're not gonna have this fear thing. Oh, well, am I gonna trash the credibility of the community by sharing these experiences? No, let's bring the information out. Let people share, and then let the community decide what is real. That's what. Yeah. Anyway.
Exactly. No, that's what needs to happen. Just it's like a Democrat. It's like the founding fathers. Just they didn't all agree, but they made America, for crying out loud. So I'm sorry to hear that, because David Wilcock was on Mike Adams' show recently, and I'm like, hey, why does he get to go on there? That's silly. If he's not going to talk about that stuff hardly at all. Yeah, but I love the work that he does, and obviously, the InfoWar, everything, and that's just, I'm thankful for it. But I think all of us want to know the full spectrum, and I think that's where your courage to get into all this stuff. And as a disclaimer, I mean, I can't prove half of this stuff, but in my life, I have a lot of corroborate, a lot of parallel experiences, corroborating evidence. Is that in a court of law, I would stand up as a witness and be like, no, I have evidence of this. I have testimonials of this. As someone I believe I've been protected from personally being abducted, but
I am tired of trying to prove myself. I say, I don't care anymore.
Exactly.
I'm going to just tell people what happened. If you want to believe it, great. If you don't, whatever. You don't need to harass me. Sometimes I got a bunch of trolls. Actually, it's on the main channel. A bunch of trolls get in there. It's like coming up all these crazy jokes. Oh, I got abducted in the future. Somebody's stuck on me up my ass. I'm like, well, what, that's your way of handling the information. Great. But the average, I mean, think of it like a dam that's about to break, and we are basically at the beginning of it. And I'm grateful to be at this stage, because I know in the future, what's going to happen is what you see like on the mainstream news, this type of material is going to be on the mainstream news.
Exactly.
Once the dam breaks, or the EBS, whatever you want to call it, NESARA comes out, and I believe it's going to happen this year, possibly this summer. And so the Alliance,
as we speak, Tucker Carlson just got fired from Fox and all this other stuff. So they're
wait, did that just happen?
That just happened this afternoon. So
wow,
there's mega shifts in the media going on.
Tucker Carlson worked for the ICC, the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate. He was high up, and they promised us all cushy jobs when we returned, and Tucker Carlson got his cushy job. I don't know how much he may not remember. He got mind wiped too. But this is Thomas Alvin, who's been on my show, has reported about this. I'm not making this stuff up. I mean, maybe Thomas, you can refer to him, but yeah. So there are a lot of people out there that were involved in these projects. You'd probably be really surprised. There's famous actors and actresses. I mean, we've got Kevin Spacey, who is supposedly the clone of was it Paul Serene, the head of Monarch Solutions, and then there's other actresses too out there. You know, like like the Heather Shaw, see, I remember her name, but I can, yeah, I was just looking at, yeah, but Heather. So there's and by the way, I was sent on a mission to kill her, so, and she didn't stay dead. So some of these people were, yeah, when you're dealing with gods and goddesses and demigods and so on, it's it's a tricky subject. So. But anyway.
Hey, well, guys, I mean, the Bible talks about gods, plural, and, you know, fallen angels. And why wouldn't it look like something like this, what James is talking about? Okay, so if you guys have been raised with a Christian background, as many of us have, you don't need to throw everything, flush it down the toilet to then listen to this. These testimonies are just like, what? But, you know, I know a lot of smart people that wholeheartedly embrace the QAnon or the, I don't know, I'm sorry, we don't maybe want to go, but like flat earth. I mean, they'll jump to these insanely huge things, but then they won't listen to actual witness testimony. You know, it's like, So anyway, I don't mean to flatter you too much, James, because we're all, you know, we're growing. I'm growing, but I just want you to know that we're an ally with you. And I've got so many just wonderful things to say. And if there's any way we can help to support the message, and I wanted to ask you originally about a podcast, possibly like an audio, for those of us who are running around with no bandwidth most of the time, the Smoky Mountains, for example. Is there a podcast in the works for Super Soldier Talk so that we could listen to?
You want to come on and chat? By the way, Vanessa Kirby was Heather Shaw. And Tom Cruise was part of the head of Umbrella Corporation. So anyway.
Umbrella Corporation, Tom Cruise.
Oh yeah,
okay, write that down.
Daryl James has come on the show. He was at McGill Air Force Base in Scotland, and he said that Tom Cruise would go down into the underground dump there and meet up with Michael. Last name starts with an A. We don't like to say his last name on here, but his head of Satanism and all that stuff. But he was tasked with acquiring a drug that is certain Hollywood elites are addicted to. That sounds like a popular Chrome Google browser. So he for the Church of Scientology, that was his role. So
okay. Wow.
Okay. And what was your other question that you went off on this?
Oh my gosh. I mean, it could all come out to be true. The idea of maybe getting some of your interviews that are as far as I know, they're video only. Would there possibly be a possibility of doing like an audio version, and maybe we could help you with that?
Yes, hit me up. I've got backups. We can discuss that. No problem.
Okay, we'll talk off air. But yeah, there's so much more to discuss. I just think anything that if there's like. There has been Christians on your show, and yes, I do believe in God, but not like the church people. And North Carolina is such a huge culture shock for me because I've never seen so many white people in my whole life. I'm always surrounded by I'm from Florida originally, but I've lived in Asia and Hawaii most of my time. And the church atmosphere here, it's so asinine to try to talk to people who aren't ready to go outside dimensional. And I come from a family of lots of miracles and lots of supernatural experiences. And on my own show, I like to talk about just how we're going to have to tap into the supernatural to get through this war with AI and what's coming. And I look at the programs, this information as vital to be conscious of it at the very least. And then if you would open your heart, as I have, to listen to James Casbolt for hundreds of hours, your materials, I have begun to have engagements with off-planet stuff, and I have suffered for it. And some of my friends would call me and they would say, Michael, you know, you're the craziest Christian I know. Let's do some prayer work around the Sirius A and B binary star system. And I'm like, okay. And then we went and engaged with like Andromeda Council and all these like weird kind of like a United Nations from space type of thing. And we would engage it, but we didn't even have the clearance to do it. And boy, did we suffer. I mean, my life almost got ripped apart physically within a month of doing that. So this is not stuff to play with, guys. But at the same time, just understanding the power of prayer. And I look at it like Star Wars. You've got aliens, you've got the Republic, you've got the Jedi. And I really look at what we're doing is we're trying to train the Jedi, to tap into not the satanic force, but like the Holy Spirit force, and utilizing the truth as your lightsaber. And we all work together. We don't have to all be Jedi. We don't have to all be in the Republic to use that kind of, and I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about this because I'm talking with James Rink, guys. I'm talking with James Rink right now in the real life. And I just feel like there's an alliance forming as these big figures are being taken out of the way. And look, you're the media. You're one of the most professional people out there to be discussing this. Sane head on your shoulders, as if anybody's ever said that to that. We need more of your material. We need to kind of triangulate, kind of strategize moving forward. I'm sure we'll do some kind of collaboration again in the future, but I just want to thank you for your time, James, and thank you for your just tireless work for this effort, this mission. If there's anything else you wanted to share.
Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate that. And it took a lot of work, and actually, for me, it doesn't even seem like work. I just keep pushing out more content because I mean, I feel like until everybody awakens that my job isn't done. So when maybe somebody else could come out and, I can retire. I don't know if I really want to try to retire, but so go check out my website, supersoldiertalk.com. Also, I mean, there's links that'll take you to other websites, but the best way to see all my videos is go to Rumble, because I've had 9 videos deleted by YouTube, and then I purged everything up to prior to the I can't say it. That whole thing back in 2019 that came out, I had to purge everything because I had people were coming on my show and they were having dreams of the future before the whole agenda took place and telling people it was going to happen. And YouTube came back and 2 years later said, oh, well, we're going to say these dreams, it's always so go to Rumble, and also go to neologicaltech.com. Go purchase my book, okay, and also get yourself a meditation cube. I assemble those things myself, and it's actually my meditation cube over here. Yeah, so the cube has pyramids in there of orgone material, and you put this on your lap and you meditate, preferably 30 minutes a day. And I probably only do it twice a week, but it'd be best if you were doing this every day. Okay. And I got to show this thing. This is from Alexi. I just did an interview with Alexi. She handed this, she painted this and handed this to Trump at in Las Vegas on the street. And Trump liked it and brought her inside. And there's a picture of her with Trump. And she's setting up a caravan to go to Mar-a-Lago, preferably for his birthday, but we're not so sure if it's going to happen then. And she wants to get, because she is a MK Ultra Monarch experiencer and ET experiencer, SSP veteran, and she wants to get a lot of SSP veterans to go down to Mar-a-Lago to be part of this caravan. I guess maybe once I need to get her video up. I promise I'll get it up in the next week. So just stay tuned for that, and I'll have information about that caravan. So thanks, Alexa.
Awesome.
If you see this, anyway, says 1 in a million. Anyway.
Whew.
Oh yeah, wow. I got a lot of stuff about Trump, but I don't really want to go there because, I'll tell you what. Let's just call it a show, and yeah, you good for that?
Yeah,
okay.
Awesome.
Audience members,
all right.
I'm sorry. I know you have great questions. Let's see, actually, not too many questions here. Because we haven't really queued them to ask this question, but yeah, great comments. Thank you, Count Coob, Carrie Ann, Joyce Hartman. Yeah, somebody says I look a lot bit like Max. Max, when he was he said that I was his brother when he said we were in the we were pilots near Saturn, but I don't think he was fully conscious when he was saying this. But oh wait, somebody says here He has a clone on Saturn. Okay, that's funny. All right, great. Everybody, let's call it a night, and I will see you all later. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much, James.
I'll see you. Bye, everybody.
Great. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Please consider supporting Super Soldier Talk by purchasing your own Neo Meditation device. Your Neo Meditation device will help you reduce stress, integrate trauma, enhance intuition, enhance clairvoyance, and enhance creativity. Get yours now at www.neologicaltech.com.